Hey there, Steve Gamache for Chef Knives to Go, and we're back for another episode of Chef Knives to Go quick look videos. And what we've got this time is the DaoVua Classic V2 Tall Gyuto 210 millimeter knife. And so this knife is, as you'll see, it's quite thin and got a little bit of flex to it. It's much thinner than the other knives that I've handled by them. But very interesting knife. You can read the story on the web page, but this is their kind of V2 version 2 line. The steel's a little bit harder. It does take a little bit better edge. They've taken a little more time with fit and finish on these, and so they have upped their game. I've got the Bunka from this line as well, and this one is much thinner than that. It's just a kind of totally different feel, really. But heat treat is not really specified. They're made out of leaf spring carbon steel, hammered out and then ground down, and heat treat probably is in the 58 to 60 range. These feel a little harder than the other ones, so they've bumped up their heat treat game a little bit as well. The construction is mono steel. There's one piece of steel. There's not any layers or cladding. And then weight and dimensions can vary a little bit from knife to knife. This particular one is 169 grams or 5.9 ounces. The edge length from the tip, the cutting edge length all the way to the back, is about 213 millimeters or 8.4 inches, and the overall length is about 367 millimeters or 14.4 inches from the tip all the way to the end of the handle. As I said, this is a very thin knife. I was surprised how thin it was. I'm not comparing it to that, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of a Takeda. A lot of times those are quite thin, and I'm not saying it's the same quality or anything like that, but the thinness reminded me of that, so don't hear what I'm not saying. But I was like, wow, that's pretty thin. So I measured about 2 millimeters at the back, and then about 1.5 here, and pretty much it varies a little because of the hammering, but it's pretty thin. And it's got some flex to it. The tip is pretty darn thin, and it goes well through onions, so the performance of this knife is really quite good. Here's the choil shot, so it's thin at the edge as well. Again, you do have some flex here. It's not a big muscular knife, but it's very light and flickable and does a nice job on product. Out of the box edge on this, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. It's one of the better out of the box edges I've seen from them. Let's see what else. The blade height, this is a tall Gyuto, and it is. So this is about 64.5 millimeters tall, so it's got a lot of height to it. And you can see the shape is kind of a big santoku, really. It's got a low tip, kind of a sheep's foot point to it. So it's kind of like a really big santoku, very similar profile. Handles, they do a nice job on their handles, and these could change out anytime, but what they're putting on these right now is a kind of a nice looking combo wood handle. It's octagonal, although it's a bit more rectangular in practice. You've got some small facets here for those other 4 facets, but it's comfortable. The fit and finish is well done on these. All the handles I've seen, they're a little on the thin side, but they're comfortable and very nicely finished, and really they're nice. The glue up has been pretty consistently tight for all of these and pretty sealed up, so kudos to them for that. Nice job there. Let's see. Let's do our beauty shot here. So these have a neat finish to them. It's just kind of a hammered finish. Everyone's going to be a little different. The light here, you can kind of see a little bit of the grind there. They're not super superb, super straight on the grind. The blade is very straight. It's well made. But you can see, the grind itself there. It's not, $300 knife type grind, but they do a nice job on it. And like I said, the performance is really quite good. Fit and finish, I would say, is quite good. It's they put a little effort into rounding the spine and rounding the choil into the neck here, so it's very comfortable out of the box. Again, nice and straight. Good fit and finish. It's very light. Got a little bit of flex to it. Let's see, our balance point is right about there, so a little bit behind a pinch grip. For me, a pinch grip's pretty close to this logo. Pretty close to that logo, but still a nice neutral kind of nimble feel to it despite the size, physical size of it. And again, out of the box edge, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. This will get quite a bit sharper, but it's a pretty nice out of the box edge. This is a very interesting line of knives. You can read about them on the product page. The steel is quite reactive out of the box, so do not be alarmed if this thing starts turning onions brown right out of the box. I suggest maybe cutting some poultry or beef or something. You can put a little different kind of style color on that patina that you're going to get on there, but it'll oxidize quite rapidly at first until you get a base built, and then it'll settle down quite a bit. So again, you may want to cut a few onions It'll turn them brown, but that'll kind of set the base if you don't mind that kind of gray, brownish color on it. Sometimes poultry will give you a bluer. Depends how the steel reacts to it, but again, it is very reactive to start with, and then it will settle down quite a bit as you start to use it, so just be aware of that. There is no stainless on here anywhere, so when you're done with it, wash it, dry it very, very well, and put it away. Here is the cutting edge profile, what it looks like on the cutting board when you're using it. And so it's just kind of pretty middle of the road profile. You've got a fairly low tip, but there's some belly there, so you can still get pretty high for rocking. So this will rock nicely on product that's not real big. And then you've got a little bit of a flattish area towards the back, so you can chop a bit with that. And then just kind of a medium, not too much curve to the middle of the blade. So this thing will rock nice. It'll push, pull, cut, glide cut. You can do tip draws with it without a problem. It's a little high on that, but it'll do tip draws pretty nicely. So I'd say it covers a fairly decent amount of technique pretty well. So it's just a cool knife. It's got some character to it. It's not a lot of money, so if you want to, especially if you want to learn how to sharpen, this steel is actually pretty good for sharpening. And you don't have to, invest a lot of cash in a knife you're just going to use to learn how to sharpen on. But it's interesting conversation piece, where it came from, what it looks like, and it doesn't cost a ton. And so these are well worth your time to look at, and I would say try one out. They're pretty cool. So this is the DaoVua Classic V2 Tall Gyuto 210mm knife.